was your response to it?
Hey, I'm not a member of BAFTA. I'm not a member of the Academy, so I don't get all the screeners. So
Yeah.
when you, as usual, a lot of stuff hasn't been released in the UK, or you don't necessarily get a chance to see it.
Judging by what's been happening at the previous award ceremonies and what's happening with because you're having all the awards happening at the moment. If I was going to place money on what's going to get best film and best director, I think it's going to be The Artist. But the Oscars like feel-good movies. I mean, last year you had The King's Speech.
But there's also the Descendants.
Yes.
As well.
But when you've been seeing what's been happening at the other award ceremonies, it's the fact The Artist, it's a silent movie, it's in black and white, it's a celebration of Hollywood
of its time,
of film, and it actually takes but you think when you're told it's a French film done in silent and black and white, you think it's going to be something stuffy and awful.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's fun, it's highly enjoyable, it's visually incredibly creative. So I'd be surprised if that doesn't scoop the best. But there was a couple of surprises in this. I mean, people were very shocked that Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close has scooped a Best Film nomination.
Yeah.
And it is actually the poorest reviewed film to ever get an Best Film Oscar nomination.
I mean, to the point that actually, I don't think there's been any publicity on this film in the UK anyway.
No, it hasn't been released yet.
I don't think anyone... But there's not even any pre-publicity for it. You don't even... I think a lot of people in the UK hadn't even heard of this film.
People have been genuinely shocked because this had very, very bad reviews. There was supposed to be 10 films nominated for Best Picture.
Said up to 10.
Up to 10, yes. Yeah. But it's you have to get so many number one, top of the ballots. Yeah. So they only had 9. A couple of films I was surprised to not see in there, like The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. There was, quite a few films I was very surprised.
Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy goes overlooked by the Golden Globes completely as well.
Yes.
But at least they've got... Well,
we're going to move on to that into a second. The other thing is, and I know it's not deserving of winning a Best Picture Oscar, but I do think, a bit like with Lord of the Rings Return of the King, that after 8 films,
very
as the
films,
biggest franchise ever, and what it's contributed to the film industry, that Harry Potter, it's a bit of a shame they couldn't have at least given it a nomination for the final film in the saga. I do think it has been a high quality series.
It has been, and the films
and
have
what
just
it's done technically for the film industry has been, and I do think if it had been an cultural American series, it probably would have. If it was filmed in Hollywood, it would have got some kind of recognition like that. I think because it's a British film series, it had, and I also think it was a real shame. And I'm jumping over to a different category here, but I actually do genuinely believe that in the Best Supporting Actor role, Alan Rickman is actually deserving of a nomination for Best Supporting Actor, and I really hope he gets it in the BAFTAs, because I think he did some incredible, really... Just, and I think it's sometimes unfair, because if somebody's in a certain genre or style of film, then their good work's not necessarily going to always be recognised.
Oreo and Friends says, Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close should win for stupidest title for a film ever.
Yes, well...
but jumping to Best Animation, and going back to what you're saying about Harry Potter not being an American creation, do you think Tintin not being in Best Animated Feature had suffered the same thing?
That's kind of shocking.
Because you think Kung Fu Panda 2 is in there. You think,
I know.
How is Kung Fu Panda 2 rated above Tintin as a Best Animated film?
Yeah. But Tintin's very much a European phenomenon. It's not really known in America, but you're absolutely right. I mean, I think on a technical level, definitely on a story-wise level and everything, that's quite bizarre that something like Kung Fu Panda gets in there, or Puss in Boots.
Puss in Boots, yeah.
And
I'm sure it's fun to watch, but
which had a critical mauling.
But as best film, it's bizarre.
Now looking down to Best Actor category, I'm really hoping, and I think he's actually got a good chance. I'm hoping Gary Oldman gets it.
It would be nice. It's his first ever nomination. Surprisingly,
which is very surprising. But he's very popular in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And as you know, when it comes to actually winning an Oscar, sometimes it's not down to just that film role. They don't necessarily give it to the best performance. You've got to have a body of work.
Yes.
They very much give it to the body work. And when I look at it, I haven't seen George Clooney in The Descendants yet. But if I was a betting person, I would say it's probably going to be between George Clooney and Gary Oldman, because in both cases, they're actors who the Academy will probably feel these are people who they don't want, sort of like in 50 years, the history books to say we never gave those actors an Oscar for Best Actor, because they're both deserving of an Oscar at some point in their career. And, you know, it would be very... And I think it would be nice, because Gary Oldman, oddly enough, he's a brilliant actor, but he never gets the lead roles now. He gets the supporting roles. So, you do know he was the first choice for Sarek, Spock's dad, in Star Trek, the last Star Trek movie.
Really?
Yes. But they couldn't offer him.
They couldn't offer him the right money, really?
No, yes. And he was also the first choice for the role, for the voice of General Grievous in Star Wars. I can see that. And had actually recorded most of it when he found out Star Wars was a non-union film. So he refused to be associated with it. Yes. Largely because of the merchandising stuff, Star Wars is non-union.
Elizabeth Oriana thinks The Artist should win the Best Picture.
I think I really, when I'm looking at what... I actually have to say, it's looking at some of these, it's quite there's a lot of stuff I'm looking at this, I'm thinking there's some quite boring stuff here, to be honest. I don't think the past has been a great year for high quality films. I think The Artist is kind of like, it's just, it's also, it's what, that is the type of film the Academy usually likes.
So, supporting role, I mean, Kenneth Branagh probably has the momentum, maybe.
I put my money on Christopher Plummer.
Christopher Plummer. And
again, my reason for putting Christopher Plummer down is it's to do with body of work.
Yeah, he might not be up there again.
Christopher Plummer is a hugely popular actor in Hollywood. People love him. He's a very well liked. People love having him in their films. He's given fantastic performances. And he's one of those actors like Christopher Lee. You almost get the impression they stand by the phone, and when the phone rings, they pick it up and they just go, "I'll do it," because he just appears in. You just get the impression if you want him in a film, he's in it, because he appears in great films and he appears in terrible films. But like Christopher Lee, he could be in the worst film possible, and could know it's the worst film possible, but that will not affect the quality of his performance. He will still give the best performance. You know, he will still give it. I mean, I remember him in Stellar Star as the Emperor of the Galaxy. Do you remember that Star Wars knockoff film?
No, I didn't see that.
Him with Caroline Munro as like this cheap Barbarella fighting the galactic villainy in a bikini. Well, and he was the Emperor. He was the good Emperor of the Galaxy, and his son was, in his first acting role, was David Hasselhoff, who gets to use David Hasselhoff with a lightsaber.
A fake lightsaber.
It doesn't get better than that, does it? You know, my life felt complete when I saw that. I would put my money on Christopher Plummer. I really would. And also, when you look at that, it's not going to be Jonah Hill, but also when you look at that list, it's also Nick Nolte and Max von Sydow have more than Kenneth Branagh. And Kenneth Branagh is really not very much part of the Hollywood scene.
Yeah. I guess Kenneth Branagh's probably more the BAFTA.
Okay, yeah, Kenneth is more likely to get the BAFTA out of this. But I would be very surprised if it wasn't Christopher Plummer. And if it's not Christopher Plummer, then it's going to go for Max von Sydow or Nick Nolte.
Yeah, I mean, because, hey, Max von Sydow's been around a long time.
I think he's already got an Oscar, though, hasn't he?
Has he had an Oscar?
I'm pretty sure he has. And then we're looking at the actress.
Yeah.
It's going to be Meryl Streep.
Is it Meryl Streep? Is that just a foregone conclusion?
It just seems a foregone conclusion. She's had 17 nominations in her
incredible,
career.
Isn't it?
Yeah, but it really does seem at this point it's a foregone conclusion. And whatever you might feel about the film itself, and it's been hugely controversial, her performance as Margaret Thatcher, it is just like it looks like she doesn't even look like Meryl Streep, and the physical movements and the voice.
If you listen to the, they had obviously when they're playing the trailers, for the film in the cinema on the radio. I mean, it's Margaret Thatcher's voice. It really is. You're not thinking that you're listening to Meryl Streep acting. You know, I mean, she's a bit more glamorous. Well, far more glamorous.
That said, if it wasn't going to go to Meryl Streep, and I think it will. It's without a shadow of doubt, it's going to be Meryl Streep. Rooney Mara is like her first major role. So, you know, the Academy will think, well, you've got another chance.
Viola Davis?
But, well, I was going to really point at Glenn Close.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because the thing is, Glenn Close, again, she's this actress who's been in Hollywood a long time. She's playing a woman who spent her entire life living as a man, working as a butler, and nobody found out they were a man until they died.
Yeah.
And this is a film that she's produced and financed herself, and it's taken her 20 years to get made. So it's one of those things that the whole story there, you know.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. I haven't seen the film yet. I'm surprised it didn't get more nominations when you put all that behind it. But in any other year, I would have put it down for Glenn Close, but I really think Meryl Streep's got the momentum behind her on
I
this.
kind of agree with that. And actress in a supporting role.
Well, I was very surprised to see Melissa McCarthy.
Well, this
is like John Belushi in Animal House getting.
It was quite surprising, but actually quite a nice surprise.
You say it's not, but as I said, you know, it's a fun role. But if they had a guy doing exactly the same kinds of things, humour, in a similar kind of film, you would not even consider them for an Oscar for a second. It's like John Belushi. It's a female John Belushi from Animal House, and John Belushi didn't get an Oscar nomination.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see that kind of film getting recognised. Good luck to her, but I can't see her getting it.
I can't see it. No, I mean Janet McTeer, I think, has won before, hasn't she? I think she's an incredible actress. But possibly Octavia Spencer would be my call.
That's what yes.
I think there's a lot of certainly a lot of momentum for that film as well. I think they want if it's not going to get some of the bigger, if it's not, it's a good
film that helps a good film. It's very enjoyable. It's very typical of Hollywood in that we're going to deal with a film of racial prejudice within American history, and of course it's always done from the white perspective.
Course,
so you never, you know, unless Spike Lee does it, you're never going to get a Hollywood film dealing with the horrific racism they had in America in the 50s, 60s and 70s from a black person's point of view. It's always going to be from a liberal-minded white person trying to help
doing the right thing.
But you want to know something? It's still, on its own merits, it's still a damn good film.
Indeed.
The Help.
Yeah, sure. Well, we've discussed animated feature film. And
I was actually quite surprised Emma Stone didn't get a nomination because she, for all her being this, you know, sexy young up and coming actress, she does seem to be getting a lot of respect as an actress as well.
Animated feature film. Well,
tough one to call.
It's a tough one to call because I suppose it'd be nice for Chica and Rita because it's the independent film out there. It'd be nice to not see it go to, you know, the Disney and DreamWorks powerhouses.
Well, you know, if you're giving it to bloody Kung Fu Panda or Puss in Boots, oh my goodness. At this point, it becomes a bit more harder to guess.
This is where it becomes sort of guesswork.
Yeah, you know, you really couldn't say on this kind of stuff.
I mean, this is the sort of thing that I suppose that the Harry Potter might get just as, hey, here's a token for all your troubles. Imagine it would probably go to the artist.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised
possibly Hugo, though. Possibly Hugo.
I wouldn't be surprised if looking through this, you know, art direction, cinematography, costume design, stuff like that, I wouldn't be surprised if this really gets down to between Hugo and the artist.
Yeah.
Because they're two historical movies. And one thing we forget now is, in terms of special effects, is that throughout the 70s, 80s and 90s, special effects was the providence of science fiction films like, you know, Star Wars and Star Trek. But now, special effects and CGI is used incredibly heavy in historical movies to, you know,
change landscapes.
And, you know, sometimes you can see a historical movie and that will have more CGI in it, a more technical CGI in it, than a science fiction film.
They might be filming on a real cobbled street, but they need to get rid of those modern things in the street which give it away. So, but the actual street itself, the actual cobblestones are all real, but those window panes might need to be changed, or that modern wine you can't get rid of just has to be changed.
We skipped over here best director, and although I personally think it's the artist's year, I also wouldn't be surprised if Hugo, because this is Martin Scorsese's most personal film. And, you know, he's seen as one of America's greatest directors, very much loved within Hollywood. I could see it potentially going for Hugo. I've got a friend who will never watch a Woody Allen movie on moral grounds.
because of his strange penchant for stepdaughters.
Yes, right. It is a bit repellent.
Cinematography, yeah. Again, it's
the cinematography is going to be the artist. I mean, you know, doing a black and white movie, making it look that good. It's, I wouldn't be surprised if the artist scoops about 5 or 6 Oscars. Are we getting much response? People airing some views in the message board?
Mike Glancy agrees about Gary Oldman being great.
I'd love it if Gary Oldman got an Oscar.
And Elizabeth Oriana saying The Descendants is a very good film. It's the real competition against the artist for the top award, the Best Picture.
Hello to David Spell, who's just joined us in Google Hangout. I do think it's going to be... I haven't seen The Descendants, though. The one thing about The Descendants, though, is it's just George Clooney. And George Clooney is very respected within Hollywood.
And loved, absolutely.
And what they really love about George Clooney is that George Clooney makes films which are both worthy and commercial. I'm looking at the makeup section here, and I haven't seen Albert Nobbs or Iron Lady, and I'd love it to go to Harry Potter. When you consider in both those films changing Meryl Streep into Margaret Thatcher, or Glenn Close into a man, those films, you know, might be looking at the nod for best makeup Oscar there. It's kind of like funny, best foreign language film. I'm looking here and I'm thinking, The Artist, by being a silent movie, it's a French-made film.
It's a French-made film,
but it's able to get you'd be up for the best film because it's silent.
There's no language.
There's no language to it.
I would imagine that on foreign language, I think the momentum would probably be with a separation from Iran. This is an interesting one. Music original song. Only 2 songs out of all the songs in every film in the last year are considered good enough to be nominated.
Well, I'm quite surprised. What I'm very surprised about is that Madonna
just won a Golden Globe.
A Golden Globe
against Elton John, and neither of them.
Well, did you actually see? I thought this was so funny in the Golden Globes. You know, when they announce the nominations, and then they announce the winner, and you always see the nominations, the people who've lost, they always have a big smile on their face, and they clap, and they're so happy for whoever's won.
Yeah.
And, you know, you always think to yourself, are they for real here? Aren't they upset? But they always do seem to exude, you know, they were just happy that they're nominated. Elton John, I've never seen anybody look so pissed in my entire... Oh, but he looked like an absolute blancmange of unhappiness.
And of course, then David Furnish, who then tweeted about his unhappiness about it, then had to apologise later for making comments on Twitter that Madonna didn't deserve it.
Her track for WE, what got me was the song sounds too modern.
Yes.
For a film like that. I felt it was just totally incongruous with the film itself. And I was shocked that she got a Golden Globe. But then again, you know the rumours about the Golden Globes, and Madonna is big enough and powerful enough within Hollywood. But I was still very surprised Madonna or Elton John not nominated here. Or talking about people who are grumpy about not winning. Did you ever notice that in the Oscars, when, I forget who actually won, but it was when Bill Murray was nominated for Lost in Translation, and everybody thought Bill Murray would get it, and when they actually announced the winner, and then they cut to all the losers smiling and clapping, they didn't cut to Bill Murray. And from what I heard, he tried to walk out, and they had to kind of like sit him back down.
Yeah, I remember that story. Yeah. Elizabeth Oriana is agreeing, I believe, about what we've been saying about George Clooney.
Yeah.
He's far more popular with the fans than Brad Pitt is. Do you know he is the only one who visits with the fans at the Oscars who didn't get seats in the stands and waits outside in a long line?
Well, I'll actually say the one thing is that I'm a bit of an autograph collector, and I go to a lot of film premieres and stuff like that. And I will actually say that Brad Pitt and also Angelina Jolie, their record is impeccable for standing outside at British premieres with the fans. George Clooney as well. You'd be surprised at who won't do it. And like I went to the premiere of Kick-Ass. I had tickets to actually see the film, but I stood outside because I wanted to get... because I was already a fan. I'd seen a special preview screening of the film. I loved it. Wanted to get all their autographs. I waited outside. None of the kids would sign. They all refused to sign any autographs. The only person who was signing was who's the bald English actor who always plays thugs?
It was Mark Strong.
Mark Strong was the only one signing. And then everybody on the premiere, on the red carpet, we saw this tramp turn up, this hobo, who looked like he'd come off a park bench, and everybody was going, how's security left that tramp into this thing? He had this huge bushy beard, and he was in a big duffel coat. We suddenly realised it was Brad Pitt. And they had to delay the film by 20 minutes because Brad Pitt spent so much time outside with signing autographs, posing for photos. So I don't know how he is at the Oscars, but definitely at British film premieres, Brad Pitt has been very good. And I hate to say this because I hate them, and I think, they show the worst within genre films. But if you go to a Twilight film premiere, and considering how psychotic and mentally disturbed Twilight fans are, the actual Twilight cast will still stand around at the premiere and sign for everybody and do a lot of stuff, which is, and I could actually forgive them for running away because, their cast want to rape them and drink their blood, and, their fans, want to do, they're mentally unhinged Twilight fans.
Short films, I'm pretty sure that the short films will all be available online to watch. So for the short films, we'll probably do an episode of TVG where we'll review them. And
there's short film live action and short film animated.
Yeah, so we'll look at those in a few.
I'm hoping the Muppets get Best Original Song, because it would be nice if Kermit and Piggy went up to collect it.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
So tweet us what you think should be winners of the Oscars.
Write in the comments your Oscar predictions.
Yes.
Let's read them. Maybe we should do a sealed envelope and then pull out who we think.
I'm hoping for whether he will, I don't know. I think he's got stiff competition from George Clooney, but I'm actually hoping very much for Gary Oldman. He's done such he's had such a great career.